All right, awesome. Cool. Thank you guys so much for joining. Welcome to another bi-weekly webinar we have here with NetBrain. Today's webinar is going to be on capacity assessment or capacity planning. Okay, so hopefully everybody can hear me okay and everybody's in the chat. Going to quickly go over some slides and try not to bore you guys too much. When we talk about how NetBrain's able to achieve this capacity planning by leveraging our network-wide continuous assessments, right? So what can we cover with this? Outage prevention, diagnosis automation, application performance, network security, protective change, right? And what we do with this is we're actually not using any code. So this is just device data logic. So we're enabling it to be used by everyone, as long as you have some basic networking knowledge. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit as well. So let's take a look at how we're able to help with these different things. So, for troubleshooting workflow, for each problem, let's create a summary dashboard. Let's create an assessment. What this is going to help with is, one, it's going to automate some of the troubleshooting efforts and processes that we have put in place. But not only that, what I love about this is that you could set this up to continuously run. So you have an incident come in from your monitoring solution. You have NetBrain automate some of that process, that troubleshooting effort. Then you're using this dashboard to basically document your findings and then have NetBrain actually go in and continuously look. So when I have an incident occur and I can't figure out what's going on, chances are I'm going to look for historical records. And when that happens, I need to rely on a network engineer to really put details and define what's gone on and what's happened inside of the actual change itself, when oftentimes that isn't the case. So use this as a really good form of knowledge transfer as documentation and help NetBrain proactively continuously check after the incident to see if it reoccurs. So this might be a one-off incident, but chances are it's not. So if it's happened on one device, chances are it's going to happen somewhere else in my environment at a later date, right? So have NetBrain go in and then notify you and things like that. Assessment workflow. So this is where we're going to be really dialing in for today's demonstration. Network-wide continuous assessments. Let's look at application assessments, fault tolerance assessments, route changes, capacity planning, as per the topic of today, right? Security, things like that. And again, having that continuous. So we're not doing a one-time static assessment and we're not outsourcing it. We're really enabling you to captain your own ship here and run your own assessments yourself, as well as change workflow. This is very similar, in my personal opinion, to the incident one. Why I say this is because, if we have a kind of P1, S1 issue, the first thing I'm wondering is, one, is anybody working on this? And two, what has changed in the last 24 hours? So having that continuous aspect during our change into our dashboard is going to be very helpful, because at the end of the change, during our during and post checks, you can have NetBrain continuously look for that. So if something should deviate from the change, or if the change impacts something, or instead of acting reactively and having to backtrack, find that change ticket and remediate the problem, NetBrain can actually notify you based on the error and its findings. So very proactive method to very easily grasp the entirety of your environment and assess it, as staying true to the name here. Now, today our topic is the planning, right? So what are my utilization trends? Where are my devices, my critical links and devices, right? Are any of them close to saturation? And is it impacting any critical application? So making sure we're running these checks and being very diligent with our environment. And there's a lot of things I love about our capacity planning, and I'm going to be able to dive in a little bit deeper on each of those things in just a second here. So let me go ahead and you can always request a demo, learn more, request an upgrade, and of course, continuously join our bi-weekly webinars that we have put together for you guys here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dive straight into it. So you saw a quick screenshot of this assessment dashboard when I was showing the previous slide, right? So we have, as you can see here, 1900, and let me just make this a little smaller here. We have 1949 network intents spanning across 91 devices. Now, you can obviously scale this if you have a little bit of a larger environment. And like I mentioned, this could be for things like application issues, fault tolerance issues, routing health, security, configuration drift, things like that, right? Today, our focus is going to be this capacity network performance piece right here. So what are some things that we can go in and look for? Critical interface utilization capacity, a device CPU capacity summary, device memory capacity summary, and environmental checks all in a whole. Now, what I love about this is that we're not just able to filter via device, we're also able to filter via geographic region and also areas in our network. So for instance, here we can see distribution WAN. We can also see things like US West, and different New York data center and things like that as well. So you have a lot of flexibility here. That's just as I click through these really quick, and I want to go back here. Perfect. Now, another thing that I love about this is you can see that it's running every 2 hours. So again, we're being super proactive. But what happens to our previous checks, right? Do we just run it and then forget it, right? So if something happens, for instance, on Saturday, where does that information go? So that's where our quote unquote drill down dashboards are going to be very handy, because we're not only keeping a retention of configuration, device information, and things like that. Now with NetBrain, we're also able to keep a retention of our automation output and have it reflect here in this really great graph. So what I mean by this is from June 4th. So if I click on this, for instance, and I go into view map, I'm actually going to be able to see what those devices and what that map look like on that specific date. So let's actually go in and click on this and take a look at what that looks like very quickly. And I'm wondering if I could just move this. Perfect. Excuse me while I move the zoom bar here so I can navigate a little bit better. So here we have our output located. Now, if I click on any one of these, for instance, you could see that it's staying true to our my description. So this is actually coming from June 4th at 11:39:09 a.m. What that means is if there's a transient issue, if there's an intermittent issue, if something happens on the weekend, overnight, you'll be able to pick up on this. What this also means is if you have those problem devices in your environment that are constantly giving you CPU spikes or memory spikes, and by the time you go in to try to see what's going on, the alert has cleared because it's just kind of like a blip, or you're not able to pull a lot of information from the logs. NetBrain is going to be able to capture that information, retain it for you, so you can actually go in and remedy historical events, which is going to be super helpful. Now, if you want to, and here we can see that everything is all green, it's looking good. We're able to look at, memory, CPU memory, CPU usage here as well. If we click on one of these, you can see how NetBrain's actually going in and pulling this information. So this is where we're kind of true to that no code. This is device data logic, right? It's using Boolean language and executable commands that our engineers are already going to know. So in this case, we're looking for if the memory based off of, a show mem command or something of the sort pulls up to be less than 30, then we want, an alert, or then we want it to be green. But if, for example, it's more than 30, then we would like to raise an alert, things like that. So it's very easy to grasp and create for anyone. So you don't have to be an Ansible expert. You don't need to understand much code in order to do these kinds of things. Okay, so what does this do over time? So this is going to help you really grasp your environment, be able to, again, captain that ship that you have. And if I click on this again, you can see some of the alerts. So let's actually go in and dive into this one, because it looks like we have some alerts on this one. So I can actually go in and show you what that looks like. And maybe we can run a compare so you can see the comparable functionality that we do have here. So let's go ahead and open this, and you can see that it's finding that the fan is not okay and the present power state has an issue. So we can also use this comparable option. So chances are, like I mentioned previously when I was talking about the change aspect, if something is going on in my environment, is probably one of two things, right? Chances are somebody's working on it or something has changed. That's just, the network 101 when troubleshooting, right? That's the first thing we kind of think of or we look for. So let's run a comparable and let's actually see, what has changed. So as you can see here, we have, and apologize, there's a new mouse here. You can see that we have something prehistoric pulled here from configuration pulled from May 24th at 11:59 a.m. as well as the current data, and you can go ahead and run that comparable there. It's a little bit of a short webinar today, just because we can only show so much memory and CPU and environmental checks to you guys. But if you guys do have any questions, I do encourage you to drop it in the chat so I can take some time now with the time we do have remaining to answer anything that you may have. So there's a Q&A button inside the Zoom meeting call that you can use to ask your question. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in. I'm going to give it one more minute. But just before I leave, I just want to say thank you again so much for joining our capacity assessment biweekly webinar today. And again, if you guys have any additional questions, you can always book a demo, or you can always opt to join in on another webinar in 2 weeks. Thanks again. My name is Nazanin Younisi. Thank you for joining the capacity assessment webinar.